Welcome back to SIS 150 Personal Productivity Using Technology with Dr. X. So since you survived the first part of this introduction to Excel, we are going to be moving on to the second part, where we're going to review again what our discussion about inputs that are specific values that reside in your Excel spreadsheet cells, and the outputs that we can produce by using different formulas. So let's go back to the example spreadsheet that we have downloaded from Blackboard and we will also use in our lab, and try to create a simple formula. And this simple formula will have to calculate the percent returned, the percentage of returned books. Okay, Jacobs, okay, he's a famous author, like we had said before. He's got a bunch of books sold, 1,500, but he also has a number of returns. So the bookstore wants to calculate the percent of returned books. And imagine, you may be the person that is working at the bookstore. We have students working at the JU bookstore, and you have to perform these calculations for your boss to be able to keep track what is the percentage of the books returned and retail prices and all the rest that of course you're going to perform on your own after I show you a small example. So here we go, our small example for outputs. Outputs by using simple calculations: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Every simple calculation starts with the equal sign. So I move the cursor, I move the mouse, and click on the cell that I would like to have my output, in this case B10, as you can see in the name box. And now, as I'm performing my calculation, I also would like you to look at the formula bar. And of course, you can do at the same time what I'm doing, okay? You've got your parallel processors running. Okay, so equals is my calculation start, and equals appears in the formula bar. So that is a very standard way. This is always the way that you start an Excel calculation, equals. And then what I am going to use is not going to be simple numbers like 5 plus 5 and to show off 5 plus 5 equals 10. And if you're observative, you may notice that the cell shows 10, but the formula bar shows the formula. So really, this is not what I'm gonna use. As you can see, I'm modifying the formula, so I click on the formula bar or double click on the cell. But what I am going to use is the real power of Excel calculator, which is cell references. So think about it. Okay, I want to calculate the percentage of returned books. Okay, so what I've got to do is use the number of returns and divide it by the total number of books sold. This is going to give me a fraction of the books that have been returned. So as you can see, magic already started happening. Right after the equal sign, when I click on a cell, I get this very fancy scrolling selection of that cell, and I get the name of the cell, B9, right next to the equal sign. Now look at something else. What if I did not start my equation with an equal sign and I just clicked on the cell? Nothing happens. What if I typed equals and then B9, just typing? I see the selection. What if I typed B9? That's just text. Without the equal sign, a cell reference, which means referring to a cell by its name, is not magical. does not do the job that it's supposed to do. So B9, and then I can use the divide symbol divided by B8. That's it. Now, here's the deal. Okay, this is a fraction. It's not really a percentage. Okay, I really wanted to calculate a percentage. So let's see, what if I go to this weird number group that seems to have different types of numbers? As you can see, there's a whole menu: general numbers, numbers that have a certain formatting, currency, accounting. There's even a percentage. The percentage is also a shortcut. So if I click on the shortcut percentage and have this percent returned B10 cell selected, of course something special happens, and my simple number, my simple decimal number, turns to a percentage, a meaningful percentage that says 22% of the author Jacobs is returned, 22% of his books. Not a very good percentage. It's a little too high, but whatever. So here's a couple more important points. Why would we ever use references? Why don't we just use the equal sign and then 1,500 divided by 324? That is exactly, oops, I did the opposite thing, 324. Well, I just need to show you how to modify the formula, divided by 1,500. That's it. Okay, I did a little more typing, it's fine. The result is the same, and I don't have to be careful about all these cells and clicking on them and all these different things. Okay, great. Then I have the same result in two cells, B10 and B11. Excellent. So let's say that Mr. Jacob sells another 100 books, and from these 100 books, another 5 is returned. Notice what happens? Yeah, indeed, the B10 cell changed and now reflects the proper percentage of returns. But the cell B11, where I used just hard-coded numbers, it's dummy. It doesn't change. It doesn't update, and it doesn't reflect the percent of returned books. So one very important reason for using cell references is productivity. Again, it brings us back to the same thing over and over again. It's not because it's my favorite word in the English language. It's because that's what I'm supposed to teach you in this class. Productivity using technology. You want to be productive. You don't want to have to type these numbers over and over again. 325 times 600, and then what if something else changes? I have to retype. What if I forget that this cell has these numbers in a calculator formula? Then everything is going to be messed up and my boss is going to be really upset. So delete. Do not use hard-coded numbers where you can use nice references, okay? And that has a lot to do with your spreadsheet design. Once you know that here I'm going to be counting books and I'm going to be counting returned books, and I want to calculate based on these two numbers the percentage of returned books, then you know that the inputs are going to be what you count, the output is going to be your calculation. So it's very easy to design your own spreadsheet, and very nice to be using these beautiful features of Excel, such as the simple calculator. Let's see. Now we see a normal view of our spreadsheet. Okay, assuming that we have more formulas, which you will have by the time you finish the lab exercise on chapter 1, I would like to turn and be able to see both numbers and formulas. How do I do this? Well, there's a great shortcut. Hit Control and keep the keystroke down, and then hit the tilde or the keystroke that is on top of the tab key, and then you get the formula views in your Excel spreadsheet, and now you can see your numbers. Normally you can see your formula. When you click on your formula, you see your references color coded. It's just beautiful. You could even go to formulas and you can see the toggle shortcut, show formulas, don't show formulas, show formulas, do not show formulas, or control tilde. And this way you could even print the formulas. Let's look at the printing options. Oh yes, we can print our formulas. So assuming that you want to check your formulas with your eyes in a nice printed version, here's how you can do that. Going back, as you can see, the print is not much different than a Word printing document, but there are some additional features since you have a spreadsheet. So finally, there is one of the coolest things that you can have after bread and butter, and this is the autofill feature. Okay, but before I show you the autofill feature, I'm going to show you some more basics, because I want to format the spreadsheet in order to be able to show you in a better way the autofill. So this C column may not be needed over here because it just adds a blank column, so I'm gonna hide it, or I can even undo. As you can see, I got an additional menu by clicking on the C column letter. And how did I get this additional menu? Well, if you think back a little bit, I told you that right click brings up special menus depending on the part of the tool that you click on. Let's say I click on the row, again a special menu, I click here, I click here, here's another menu for the cell. So having my nice column additional menu, I can hide or I can delete that column. And here we go, I've deleted this column. I can also insert additional rows. So if I click on the row, right click, insert additional rows. I can also copy something. So let's say I can copy this whole row and insert it between two other rows. And as you can see, there's several good options. Let's say I just want to insert the values, but I can also insert formulas and styling choices and all these different things. So another set of choices for your special paste. And of course I'm going to undo all of these things. For now, you could follow me when I use one of the coolest features of Excel, which is the autofill feature. When I drag the pointer to the bottom right of my cell, I get this black cross, and what this black cross does is a smart filling of cells. Why is it smart? Because here I was calculating the percent of returned hardback books, and here Smart Excel decided that with the autofill feature, what I wanted to do was to calculate the percentage of returned paperback books. So how amazing is that? Excel had the smarts to use the autofill and change the column of the numbers from B to C and pick the corresponding numbers for paperback books, units sold for paperback and units returned for paperback, and calculate the returned percentage. And now if I want to unshow formulas or control tilde, I can see my nice percentages. Only 2% of the paperback books are returned, which seems a more reasonable sale for the bookstore. Going back to show formulas. So now the autofill is a beautiful feature. Imagine if you have multiple columns and you just want to drag this calculated formula and apply it to the data of the different columns. Autofill is your friend. Autofill can be performed besides horizontally, vertically. Vertical autofill, instead of changing columns from B to C, it changes the number of the row. As you can see, the column remains the same, B, and what changed with my vertical autofill is the cell B9 became B10 and the cell B8 became B9. Okay, in this case, I'm doing this just as an example, and this is not a meaningful example, so I'm going to delete this. So compare this drag, which is the moving. So with this pointer, the cross, the black cross that has arrows at its end, I'm just dragging the contents of the cell. But the black cross that appears at the bottom right of the cell uses the autofill feature, which is a very smart feature. So that's it for now. Lots of good things for you to learn, plenty of gorgeous things for productivity. Excel is the ultimate tool for productivity. So now you've got basic calculations and plus basic autofill features. One last thing, calculation per sentence. So let's say that I want to have a calculation, just as an example, this is not a meaningful calculation, where I add two numbers and then I divide the result with a third cell. This calculation is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because only B9 is divided by B13. It is wrong because of the priority of calculations. Division has priority over addition. So the division of B9 with B3 is going to happen before the adding B9 to B13 to B8. So if I paste these, and see, I didn't paste it properly, I should just paste the formulas and without the autofill. So I'm not doing this right, so I'm just going to copy that same formula, please, here. So I have these two same formulas. If I put a parenthesis for the sum, then I will have the proper calculations. So think about these things when you are performing normal calculator calculations, because as you can see, the results are very different between those two. So here the main difference was the parenthesis that marks that addition of B8 plus B9, the sum of B8 and B9 has to happen before B13. Fear not, we're going to have plenty of practical examples in your lab exercise so that you can figure out when you should use the prioritize calculations by using a parenthesis, or when you can just have your calculations plainly without a parenthesis. But keep in mind that multiplication and division has priority over addition and subtraction. It's a very simple rule. Plus and minus are weaker than multiply and divide. That's it for today. Lots of math for you, but practical math that you don't have to do anything for it. Just type and use Excel formulas. So that